Okay, well, welcome everyone to today's Sustainable Change Alliance conversation. The topic is solar-driven resilience for Santa Barbara. And we are with our guest and Sustainable Change Alliance member, Craig Lewis. Craig Lewis is with the Clean Coalition, the founder and executive director of the Clean Coalition. But before we get into our conversation, some intros and logistics. My name is Stephen MacIntosh. I'm an ESG investment advisor with Argyle Capital Partners. And I'm admitting your sister, Jonathan. And I build and manage socially responsible portfolios for my clients in the public and private markets. I'm a member of the executive committee and a founding board member of Sustainable Change Alliance. Real briefly about the SCA, or Sustainable Change Alliance. We're an impact-oriented and member-based nonprofit. We're an educational group that is focused on impact investing, and we define it as bringing financial and other resources to double and triple bottom line organizations, trying to address big social, environmental, or health-related issues, and that are trying to figure out or do something in some way, a sustainable way. Some of the organizations are for-profit, some are nonprofit, and some come from the independent sector. I'd also like to acknowledge some of the hardworking, or all of the hardworking and dedicated SCA board members that are in the meeting here today, and just express gratitude for our members that are in the SCA and that are on this call today. And finally, we really couldn't do any of this without our sponsors. They make all of this possible and keep Sustainable Change Alliance going. The founding sponsors are maps.com. Thank you, Mr. Glanville. Impact Family Office. Thank you, Mr. Jordan. And Argyle Capital Partners. The platinum sponsor for Sustainable Change Alliance is Nixon Peabody Law Firm. And our silver sponsor is Brashears Insurance. Thank you, Jared. If you're not yet a member of Sustainable Change Alliance, we really would like to encourage you to consider joining us. You can visit sustainablechangealliance.org, where you can easily sign up as a member. So a few of the logistics for the recording today. As you may have noticed already, this is being recorded. The recording will be made available on our website in a few days, inside 5 days, I would say. Everybody is on mute except for Craig Lewis, our guest, and myself. And you will not be able to unmute yourselves. So in that regard, the way we ask people to participate and ask questions of Craig is to use the chat feature at the bottom of your screen. Go ahead and type it into everyone, and we'll take questions off there for Craig. And then finally, I wanted to mention that for those of you that are members or sponsors, or Craig and your staff, we do have an after event discussion with a distinct Zoom link that was sent to you, should have been sent to you before this meeting today. We'll exit this Zoom meeting and we'll go into the other Zoom meeting, and there'll be a smaller group discussion at 2 o'clock. So about our speaker, Craig Lewis and I have known each other for a few years now. He's a fantastic human being, and one of the smartest people I know. But let me, instead of just throwing obsequious comments out there about my friend, let me tell you about his bio. He has over 30 years.
Keep going, Stephen. You're doing great.
He has over 30 years of experience with renewables and wireless and semiconductors and in the banking industry. He was the vice president of government relations at Greenholz, and was the first person to successfully navigate a solar project through the state of California's renewable portfolio standard solicitation process. Craig was the energy policy lead on Steve Wesley's 2006 gubernatorial campaign for California. He's been in government relations, corporate development, marketing positions at leading wireless semiconductor banking companies and Qualcomm. He is, in my estimation, retired, and he does righteous work as a retiree and has been doing it for quite some time. So with that, before you launch into your presentation, Craig, if you don't mind, just tell us a little bit more about you, who you are, and your journey and how you got into this space.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I'll start by just, making sure everybody knows that I am a native son of California. Excuse me, of Santa Barbara, which in California, of course.
Yeah.
But I grew up in Santa Barbara. I attended the Santa Barbara Unified School District, starting with Adams School, La Cumbre Junior High, and San Marcos High School. I had a little stint, a couple of years at Villa Valley as well. So I've been in the Hope School District also. And the Santa Barbara is my home at my core, and was able to move back here a couple of years ago to lead the efforts that you'll hear about today in this presentation. But aside from that, I've lived internationally for a handful of years in the telecommunications space, which is where I spent most of my career. And up until establishing the Clean Coalition about 10 years ago. So lived internationally and then lived in San Diego, Los Angeles, and for the last 15 years before moving back to Santa Barbara, lived up in Menlo Park, which is up in the San Francisco Bay Area, and still the location of the majority of the Clean Coalition team. Built a small team here in Santa Barbara now, and we're going strong and doing a lot of stuff that you'll hear about in this presentation today. My segue from the telecommunications space into the renewable energy space really came about because although I'm not retired and I cannot financially afford to retire just yet, I did do quite well in the telecommunications space, including with companies like Qualcomm, and had enough money to take a few years and risk having no income for a while, and put about $250,000 of capital together from the Lewis family, from my family, to get the Clean Coalition started back in 2009. And took a few years before we could fund ourselves organically as a nonprofit. And fortunately, we've been successful in doing that. Since then, I got to say, COVID has thrown some things into the mix that make that increasingly challenging to keep the organization funded. But one of my asks for all of you is to think about philanthropic funders that would be interested in what the Clean Coalition is doing and would consider supporting our efforts. We are a nonprofit, and about a third of our funding comes from philanthropic sources. About a third comes from government grants, and about a third comes from consulting that we do specifically for various municipalities or corporate entities, et cetera. My transition from telecommunications into the environmental realm really came about because I'm a lifelong environmentalist. I've been a Sierra Club John Muir member for as long as I can remember, and the environment is very meaningful to me. And the energy industry is a big culprit in destroying a lot of our environment, both from the extraction side of things, but even when you think about the electricity system, the fact that most of the electricity comes across on transmission lines. Those are those big steel tower, power towers that run transmission lines. Those are very destructive to our environment. They're about as destructive as building a road. And you see those oftentimes, through the middle of pristine environments, including the backside of the Santa Barbara Mountains. And I want to protect our environment. So I want to see renewable energy come in at the local level. I want to see it on rooftops and parking lots and environments that are already destroyed, right? They're already tainted. They're built environments. Let's use those built environments for multiple purposes. And the more electricity we can source from built environments, the less we need to source from central large scale sources, regardless of the flavor, whether they're big solar projects in the middle of the desert or big wind projects in another state, or whether they're natural gas or some other type of non-renewable power plant. You need transmission lines to get energy from afar to where you actually use it, which is where people live and work. And that's within the distribution grid. So you need the transmission grid to travel, to take energy long distances from where it's generated in the middle of nowhere to where you need it, where people live and work. And at some point, there's a handoff from the transmission grid to the distribution grid. And the distribution grid is what serves us at our local level. And basically, rule of thumb, if you see wood power poles, you're on the distribution grid. You're close to where people live and work. If you see steel power towers, you're on the transmission grid and you're far away from where people live and work, because nobody wants to live or work anywhere near a transmission line. So anyway, I've been driven mostly by environmental motivation, but I'm also aware that where we have renewable energy really hitting scale, we also have the most cost-effective electricity that people can buy. And the trick is to getting to scale. And that holds true at the local level as well. We need to make sure that we scale local renewables, because if we do, it will be the cheapest source of electricity that people can buy. And I don't have this information in my slide deck today, but there's Clean Coalition's done a lot of work in analyzing renewable energy programs from around the world. And if California had the efficiency of the German solar market, which, by the way, 90% of the solar that's been deployed in Germany has been on rooftops, parking lots, parking structures. If California had the efficiency of the German solar market, we would be getting rooftop solar for 3 cents a kilowatt hour, which is less than it costs to transport electricity over the transmission grid, right? Forget about generating the energy in the distribution grid, just the transmission grid, just the steel power tower piece of it costs 3 cents a kilowatt hour in California. So the Germans are getting rooftop solar for less than it costs just for transporting over the transmission system. And it's because they've hit major scale with local solar, and California has not. So that shows up directly in the economics and economies of scale that drive the economics. Anyway, Stephen, that's probably a longer answer than you were looking for, but that's the truth, and
That's great.
I'm sticking with it.
Stick to it. You should stick to it.
All right, are we ready to move into my presentation?
Yeah, please do.
Okay, and I'll just start by saying that there's a fair amount of information in here. And a lot of it is technical, and I'm not going to go into the technical details, but I will just let you know that this presentation will be available on the Clean Coalition website under our events tab. If you just go to the past events, and look for this particular event, it's all in reverse chronological order. So if you go there anytime soon, it'll be right at the top. And then Stephen and the rest of the Sustainable Change Alliance folks, you're more than welcome to distribute this yourselves. It can be distributed in PowerPoint form. The Clean Coalition, as I said, is a nonprofit, which means that our whole reason in life is to accomplish our mission, which is to accelerate the transition to renewable energy and a modern grid. And so the information that we develop and produce, our analyses, all of that is intended to be used by everybody who is able and willing to use it to help us accomplish this mission. And I should just start off by saying that my presentation today is going to really be talking about the overarching objective of achieving solar-driven resilience for the Santa Barbara region. And that really is going to be accomplished through what are called community microgrids and solar microgrids. And I'll talk a little bit more about what those things are in just a moment. Coming back to this slide, I will just say, in addition to the mission, I want to mention that the Clean Coalition does intend to move the country to 100% renewable energy. We think that that is an achievable end game, and it's just a matter of how long is that going to take. It's going to take 10 years or 30 years or somewhere in between, but those would be the logical kind of bookends for the time frame that's going to be required. And the Clean Coalition spends a lot of its effort to make sure that when we get to that 100% end game, and along the way, that we're getting a significant share of the energy from local renewable energy. And that means, as I was describing before, that means energy that is interconnected within the distribution grid and facilitating resilience without the dependence of the transmission grid. With that, I'm going to just kind of give this overarching picture of what is going on in the Santa Barbara region from an electricity standpoint. There's a lot of words on this slide, so I don't want people to get locked into the words. Just let me talk about this picture here for just a minute. This region is the Santa Barbara region. You can see that UCSB is right in the middle of this map area. And this is a 70-mile stretch of California coastline that is referred to from an electrical standpoint as the Galeta load pocket. And that name does not come from the fact that the city of Galeta is in the Galeta load pocket. It comes from the name of the Galeta substation, which is the only point of interconnection that this entire region has to the transmission system. And that Galeta substation is served by a transmission line that is 40 miles long and incredibly vulnerable. So it's this purple trace is the transmission line. It actually comes up from Ventura, which is not even in the picture. So 40 miles, and you can see it comes up on the backside of the Santa Barbara mountain range. And that is right through the heart of extreme fire risk, extreme landslide risk, and extreme earthquake risk. And Southern California Edison has been clear that that transmission line goes down, will go down in the future, and could be down for as much as weeks or even months at a time, because depending on how badly that line gets damaged, it's going to take some serious effort to reconstruct. So this region is—
Craig, if I may, just a real quick question. I just want to make it clear for myself and maybe others. Is this the only source of electricity coming in from the grid for us, or are there other lines too?
This is the only, on a normal everyday basis, this is the only line. There's actually two lines, but they're on exactly the same transmission towers. So, if one of those lines goes down, both of those lines are going down.
Okay, all right.
And that is the source of essentially any energy that's coming into the Galeta load pocket from afar, which means from the transmission system is coming over, is coming through the Galeta substation served by that 40-mile super vulnerable transmission route. And if those, when those lines go down, there is some distribution, a connection to the distribution grid in just to the southeast of Carpinteria that can be connected. They're not normally connected, but they can be connected to bring some level of electricity in if we are cut off, through the Galeta substation. But I want to emphasize that level of electricity we could bring in from the distribution grid that's southeast of Carpinteria is totally insufficient to serve the needs of the Galeta load pocket. and which includes, as you can see from this map, it includes the cities of Galeta, Santa Barbara, Carpinteria, and goes all the way out to Point Conception. So obviously includes Gaviota, Hollister Ranch, and everything, up into the northwest, out towards Port, all the way out to Point Conception. So the risk that we have as a region, is one of the worst cases of transmission risk in the entire state. And the good news is that the solution to this is not rocket science. The solution is getting enough local solar combined with local energy storage in order to provide the deficiency that would occur, or that does occur when that transmission connection goes out. And I won't go into all the numbers because Stephen has hammered into me that this is not, just kind of stay away from the gory details. But I will just say that the solution to get enough energy storage is easy. The California Public Utilities Commission has already approved enough energy storage, or 70% of the amount of energy storage that we need to get this level of resilience that the Clean Coalition has analyzed. And that energy storage is anticipated to come online by the end of next year. So the energy storage side of this is easy. The challenging part is getting enough solar. And even on the solar side of things, we're not talking about rocket science here. We're talking about 1 out of every 15 rooftops, parking lots, and parking structures. And that's if we got all the solar that we need from built environments. That's assuming none of it's going on any ground-based solution, no pristine environments, et cetera. If it's 100% of the solar we need for 100% resilience to the transmission system outage, what we need is 1 out of every 15 rooftops, parking lots, and parking structures to get solar. And so one of my asks for people that are, paying attention today is, or that are tuned in today, is that if if you have access to rooftops, parking lots, parking structures, whether they're yours or a friend's or a business associate's, whatever, we want to get those sites, those built environments, covered with solar. And so we'd love to talk with folks who have access to properties and the decisions that are associated with those properties to get to the decision makers to get those properties really contemplating how to get solar and how to get solar microgrids, which I'll talk about here more momentarily. But
Craig, before you jump to the next,
yeah.
We have a question on the substation itself. When was it built and what was the population at that time?
Good questions. I don't know the answer to, but the substation's been there for dozens of years. Okay. And so you just look at you can make whatever assumption you want. Maybe it was 50, 60, 70 years ago, and whatever the population of the region was at the time is probably half of what it is today.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Let's see. So just coming back here, as I said, I grew up in Santa Barbara. This region is home to me. It's very personal. And I was living up until about 2 years ago. I was living up in Northern California, and there was actually going back kind of like 4 years ago, there was a big battle around the Elwood Peaker plant, which is a peaker plant that is right out near Sandpiper Golf Course. And that is a nasty natural gas generator. It's because of all the pollution it spews, it's only allowed to be online for about 5% of the time. It's right next to a couple housing developments, and it's dangerous. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. But there was a battle as to whether the Elwood Peaker plant, the natural gas peaker plant that's called the Elwood Peaker plant, whether that was going to be allowed to continue to operate or whether it had to be phased out according to the end of its license agreement. And the Clean Coalition came in and provided a lot of detailed analysis about how we could eliminate that natural gas peaker plant, the Elwood Peaker plant, by using solar and storage and forming a Galeta load pocket community microgrid. And and we won that battle. So that was decided at the California Public Utilities Commission that Elwood peaker plant does need to shut down. It's been given a little bit of an extension here with some of these fire-related threats, but within the next few years, that peaker plant will be mothballed. It will be gone, and we need some local energy solutions to replace it and to do a whole lot more. That's a 50 megawatt peaker plant, and we need more like the order of 200 megawatts of new solar. And so we did that. We fought that battle. We got a fair amount of visibility from some of the folks who are in the know in the electricity space, having fought that battle. And by the way, there's a whole bunch of local entities also that were involved in that, including World Business Academy and Community Environmental Council and others. But we got the Clean Coalition really brought the technical chops to do the analysis to show that we can eliminate the need for that peaker plant using solar and storage. And we had to go to the mat, by the way, with Southern California Edison, because they openly said we were wrong. And we said, show us how we're wrong. We have the engineering chops. We've done the analysis. We can solve every single requirement that peaker plant can achieve with solar and storage. And they eventually caved. They said, no, Clean Coalition is correct. We can do this with solar and storage. So it was a really interesting battle. It was obviously a very satisfying one with the outcome, both in terms of getting Southern California Edison to admit that it was wrong, and to play with their engineers and kind of go to battle with their engineers at an engineering level and win, and then of course to get the vote from the California Public Utilities Commission that we were aiming for. That was all very satisfying. But this battle with over the Elwood peaker plant got the Clean Coalition really aware of the grid vulnerability that this region has. And one of the things that we learned along the way is that UCSB is the emergency sheltering site of last resort for all of Santa Barbara County. I had no idea about this. So it's not very well advertised. I grew up in Santa Barbara. It never occurred to me to go to UCSB if there's a really significant disaster. I have nowhere else to go. But that is the sheltering site. And so we found out they've got a lot of solar out at UCSB, but they don't have any energy storage. And they don't even have diesel backup generators except for their data centers. And so they really are not prepared to provide emergency sheltering services and other emergency services out there. So we approached UCSB and we helped design a UCSB community microgrid. And we're still, that's a design that is kind of, it's in a drawer, but it's looking for the right funding opportunity to bring that to life and to bring resilience to the region. And right after we got done doing that design, by the way, at UCSB, the Thomas fire hit, and then the mudslides, the debris flows took out 400 homes and 23 lives in Montecito. And that was really a stake in my heart. And that was when I really got serious about moving back to Santa Barbara and bringing this Galeta Low Pocket Community Microgrid to life. And the very first thing we did is we established a Montecito Community Microgrid Initiative. We identified 3 emergency responder facilities in Montecito. So in the upper village of Montecito, right along San Isidro Road, there is the primary fire station for Montecito is there, and it's adjacent to the Montecito Water District, which, by the way, has pumps, wells and pumps. There's actually wells right there on site, and there's pumps. And when there's a fire, those wells and pumps need to be going 24/7 to get water uphill, from which it's gravity fed to fire hydrants and everywhere else that you need water. Down the San Isidro Road, a half a mile, is the Montecito Union School, which is if there's any central community establishment in Montecito. It is Montecito Union School. And that is where the fire station stages their emergency operations. They have their fire helicopters, come in and take off and land at the upper field at Montecito Union School. It's where the bucket brigade stages all of their equipment. So these three facilities were really obvious opportunities for creating a community microgrid that's at a really small scale. Not only are they all connected by Santa Cedar Road, but they're all connected by the distribution feeder that electrically connects them all together. That distribution feeder is called the Hot Springs feeder, which actually originates out of the Santa Barbara substation, which is really close to Santa Barbara Junior High School, believe it or not. So there's this really long feeder that goes right through Coast Village Road, picks up the Coral Casino and the Biltmore, keeps going out, picks up the Miramar, and then goes straight up Santa Cedar Road and picks up the fire district, the water district, and Montecito Union School. So all three of those are connected together. We came up with this concept of tying those together in a community microgrid with solar and storage. And I just want to say that we didn't get, Southern California Edison didn't agree to tie them all together using the existing feeder, which is what we were ultimately fighting for. But the Montecito Fire District itself has moved forward with a solar microgrid that's under construction as we speak. And the Montecito Union School has moved forward also with solar. They did not opt for the battery, at least not yet, but they're going to at least put solar there. So we were able to stimulate some action through these initial activities in Montecito that I'm really proud of. And we need to get a whole lot more of that type of action out of the rest of our Galeta Load Pocket community, out of the rest of the Santa Barbara region.
Greg, if I can interrupt for a quick sec.
Yeah.
One of our attendees just asked, what's the cost of storage typically, and who's paying for it?
Sure. So the cost of storage is what's really important is kind of what's the installed cost of storage. It ranges, from $1,000 to about $1,500 per kilowatt hour. And by the way, if you install the storage with solar at the same time, then you get the investment tax credit and other tax benefits associated with installing solar. You get that extended to the battery as well. So essentially the tax benefits of solar pay for about 50% of it. You get the investment tax credit, which is worth about 25%. And then you get about another 25% in the form of accelerated depreciation. And I don't want to get into all the gory details, but I'm happy to help people go through these kind of considerations if they want to contact me, separately. But basically, those are the numbers that I just mentioned. The economics are generally very attractive. You'll see the numbers the economics that we have achieved for the Santa Barbara Unified School District. And that's, for solar microgrids, which means a combination of solar and storage that are configured to provide, significant levels of resilience. So I'm gonna keep moving on because I know I'm gonna run out of time, Stephen. Did I get that one well enough? Are we ready?
That's great. Perfect. Thank you, Craig. Yeah. Great.
So we also, in that same region of Montecito, we also identified an estate that wanted to do a solar microgrid. And so this is a picture of the estate that we facilitated to put a solar microgrid at. And I'm really happy to report that this solar microgrid is under construction also as we speak, and should be operational and provide a really great showcase for doing solar microgrids at the residential level. Now, obviously, most people don't have a big estate like this, but we had a willing participant who was ready to move this forward, and we jumped at that opportunity, and we're grateful for that opportunity. And we want everybody else to think of their homes as a contributor to the greater Galeta Load Pocket Community Microgrid, because every drop of solar we can get out there is going to help us get to the numbers we need to achieve the requirements for bringing resilience to the whole region. So I'll talk now about the Santa Barbara Unified School District. The district has about 21 sites. I think most people are familiar with the three high schools, the three major high schools in the region. You got Santa Barbara High, San Marcos, and Dos Pueblos. You've got four junior highs, four major junior highs, and then you've got a dozen or so elementary schools. And the pin drops in this map, show where all those are. The red and orange coloring shows where the extreme fire risk is in red, and the high fire risk is in orange. So you can see that this whole region is just surrounded, and we're essentially smothered by extreme fire risk. It's a very serious situation. The Santa Barbara Unified School District was very motivated to serve its student and community populations by providing solar microgrids at select locations where it made the most sense. So the Clean Coalition, in partnership with another entity, we were engaged to conduct feasibility studies for all of the sites throughout the district, and then identify the ones that had the best economics for solar microgrids, which means solar and storage that are configured in microgrids that will deliver solar-driven resilience. And what we came up with was there's going to be 14 sites that get solar, and out of those 14, 6 of them will be full solar microgrids. So they'll get energy storage and microgrid functionality as well. And the 6 solar microgrid sites are the ones shown here. The 3 high schools, Lacumba Junior High, the district food warehouse, that's the central food warehouse, hundreds of thousands of dollars of frozen and refrigerated food that serves the entire district. And obviously we need to preserve that food. If there's a major long-term outage, we're going to need that food to keep people fed in the region. And then the district office as well. So the district office is actually a separate facility, even though it's adjacent to the food warehouse. So those are the 6 sites. And this is really the money slide, so to speak. What we came up with is that the district is they're not going to have any upfront cost to get these projects built. They are going to have almost $8 million of bill savings over the next 28 years. That's how long what's called the power purchase agreement, the contract for another party to come in and design, build, own, and operate these systems is going to do that and operate those for 28 years. And over that 28-year period, the district is going to save $7.78 million, right? Almost $8 million of pure guaranteed bill savings. These are guaranteed bill savings. If they don't materialize, then the party that's been contracted with is going to have to pay the difference. And believe me, they're not in business of going bankrupt, so they're going to make that work. The district probably save considerably more money than 8 million, but 8 million is guaranteed. And in addition to that, they're going to get value of resilience for free. And the value of resilience is almost as great as the bill saving, the guaranteed bill savings. The value of resilience with conservative assumptions comes out to almost $6.5 million, as you can see there. This big question mark that's there is, a bar that is not shown, but basically there's going to be future value streams that we can use the solar and storage that are at the schools to participate in and get even more economic benefits for the school district. We just don't know what those are yet because they haven't been invented, but they will be coming. There will be future value streams that are available, and obviously we're going to help guide the district to take advantage of every economic opportunity they can. So I want to just touch on a couple of key concepts around solar microgrids and community microgrids. The most important one, and I know that I'm not supposed to talk down in the technical details or anything, but just at a high level, hopefully people don't get too confused by this slide. It's actually a really straightforward slide if you break it down. What's shown here on the vertical axis is the percentage of the load. So if you think about your house, maybe on an average day, you use about 30 kilowatt hours of electricity. Those are kilowatt hours, a basic unit of electricity. So you maybe use about 30 kilowatt hours. So if you use 10 kilowatt hours, would be 30% of that, right? That's what this percentage of load is basically. What's the percentage of your normal total load? The horizontal axis is the percentage of time. 100% of the time means that's going to be on forever, never ever goes off, right? That's what 100% of the time means. So a solar microgrid allows you to basically tier loads into 3 categories. Your tier 1 loads are your critical loads. These are the loads that people are going to die, or your mission critical functions are going to fail if you don't keep your tier 1 loads on. So tier 1 loads are super valuable, and they're generally a very small percentage of your overall load. If I think about it at my house, I don't have a tier 1 load probably, but my most valuable load is my refrigerator. So if I'm going to force rank my loads, my refrigerator is going to be number 1, and that's going to be a very small percentage of my normal electricity usage. Tier 2 loads, these are priority loads. These are loads you will keep them on as long as you can without threatening the ability to keep your tier 1s on. So in the case of my house, right, my tier 2 loads are things like my Wi-Fi. Yeah, I'd like to continue to have internet access. And then probably equal to that is some plug loads, so I can keep my computers powered, the batteries in my computers charged up, and the batteries in my, our household phones charged up. Right, those are kind of the tier 2 loads, if you will, in my household. And everything else is totally discretionary, right? Nobody's going to die if the rest of the loads go out, and nobody's even going to be that discomforted if the rest of the loads go out. So those are all discretionary tier 3 loads. But in a typical facility, and the Santa Barbara Unified Schools are a really great example of this, the tier 1 loads are generally 10% or less of the normal loads. The tier 2 loads are usually about 15% of the loads, and everything else, the other 75% of the loads, are discretionary. Is not going to be a problem if those things go out. But what a solar microgrid can do is they can guarantee that you will be able to keep your tier 1, your critical loads on forever. They're not going out. And your tier 2 loads, those can be maintained for about 80% of the time. And the tier 3 loads even can be kept on for at least 25% of the time. So a solar microgrid allows you to have everything on for a good percentage of the time, and your critical loads will never, ever go off. I just want to kind of debunk kind of the myth of diesel generators. A lot of diesel generators, unfortunately, are the de facto solution for resilience nowadays. And diesel generators are designed to keep about 25% of the loads. They generally design for tier 1 and tier 2 loads, so it's about 25% together. And they generally have 2 days of on-site fuel supply. So guess what happens after 2 days? You're done. Your lights out, right? Everything's off. So diesel generators are basically represented by this little red hatched rectangle, and solar microgrids, as you can see, are way more superior to providing true resilience for, as compared, relatively speaking, to a diesel generator. And solar microgrids should be the de facto approach that everybody is employing for resilience. I also just want to make a point. I hinted at this earlier. Natural gas is not resilient. Natural gas infrastructure, when it goes down, well, first of all, this picture is from the San Bruno pipeline explosion that happened about 10 years ago. And it happened about 5 miles away from where I lived at the time. San Bruno is about 5 miles away from Menlo Park, where I lived at the time that this explosion happened. This took out an entire city block of houses and killed a handful of people. Fortunately, it was in the middle of the day when most people were at work. Otherwise, we would have had dozens of deaths from this explosion. The only reason that we heard about this explosion is because it was in our neighborhood. This type of accident with natural gas happens about once every 2 months across the United States. And the only reason we don't hear about every single one of those is that they happen so often. So natural gas is inherently dangerous. but it's also not resilient. The city of San Francisco did a study, and under a major earthquake scenario, they showed that every single utility will go out. Gas, electricity, water, communications, everything goes out. But then the question is, how fast can you get it back online? And the key metric is how fast you can get back to 60% of your customers back online. Electricity can be brought back to the 60% level in 3 days. That's what the San Francisco study showed, and it's reinforced by lots of other studies. It takes 30 times longer than that to bring your natural gas back, right? To get back to 60% service on your natural gas will take 3 months. It's 30 times longer than 3 days, right? So people who rely on natural gas as a resilience fuel supply are insane. It's not, natural gas is inherently not resilient. All right, so I'm coming up to wrapping up my my presentation here. I just want to talk about, bring this back up to the level of the community microgrid. And there's the Galeta load pocket is served by the Galeta substation, and the Galeta substation has 8 major distribution lines that come out of it. They're at 66 kilovolts. And there's a perfect opportunity to do a community microgrid in a portion of the Galeta load pocket that is served by this one feeder. And this one feeder is in gold here, and it comes down and it serves UCSB, it serves Santa Barbara Airport, it serves direct relief, multiple fire stations, a whole bunch of the corporate, big commercial and industrial facilities out in the core area of Galeta, core commercial zone of Galeta. This is a really important zone, right? It's a core portion of the Galeta load pocket, and it's all served by this one feeder, which, just drilling in a little bit closer, right? You can see you got UCSB, you've got the airport, direct relief, a number of other facilities. And this is the perfect opportunity to do a pilot Galeta load pocket community microgrid, right? It's just on 1/8 of the Galeta load pocket. It's this 1 out of 8 66 kV feeders, and has these tremendous facilities on it. I know we've got Dennis Houghton on the webinar today, and Dennis and I have talked a lot about getting resilience for the Santa Barbara Airport. Dennis serves on the board there, and so I just want to just kind of highlight that in addition to people thinking about how can you get your home and other properties that you're somehow attached to, right? You know somebody who's the CEO over at such and such a company, or you have a commercial property yourself, or you sit on the board of some nonprofit that has a big building, big parking lot, right? I want to engage with you to get these projects, to get these sites moving forward. And I also want you thinking bigger than that, thinking about how can you help to get Southern California Edison to demand that Southern California Edison brings resilience to our region, and does it in a way that we don't have to rely on nasty fossil fuels and vulnerable fossil fuels, right? We got to do this the right way, and that's bringing solar and energy storage in the form of community microgrids like we see in this picture, and in the form of solar microgrids like we're doing with the Santa Barbara Unified School District. And with that, that is the last slide that I'm going to present. There's a couple dozen additional slides in this deck, which, as I said, this deck's it's openly available. Sustainable Change Alliance is welcome to share it with everybody directly. It will also be available through through download on the Clean Coalition website.
Fantastic. All right, thank you so much, Craig. Again, we have our after party event in 7 minutes, so we're going to try to nail a couple of questions here before then, but we'll be disconnecting here at 2 and then opening up the separate meeting room. One of our questions was about commercial buildings and how much a commercial building can fetch for rent. Do they ever do power swaps, or are there other deals available?
Yeah. So The answer to that is depending on the commercial building and how big it is, is going to determine how much solar can be sited there. And actually more important than the rooftop is the parking lot. The vast majority of solar siting opportunities in the Galeta load pocket, throughout the Santa Barbara region, is on parking lots. It's actually it's about 80% of the solar siting opportunity is parking lots. So depending on the size of your solar siting opportunity, that's going to really drive the economics. And there are different ways to do this. I think that whoever asked that question is probably a property owner and is thinking about a commercial site that they own but don't occupy. They probably lease it out to another party that is actually serves as the tenant or tenants. That brings up a couple of challenges, because the way that the rules currently work, it's very hard for a property owner to get their building in play if they don't actually occupy the building as well, especially if you have a multi-tenant situation and if the tenancy is less than 20 years. Which the majority of commercial properties are non-owner occupied, and most of them are split metered as well, meaning you have multiple tenants in the same building with different customer meters for electricity. Those situations are really hard to make the current policies and market mechanisms work for solar, which means that we need to get other policies and market mechanisms in place. The Clean Coalition fights for that every day. We've been working very close with Direct Relief that has they have a solar microgrid already. It's been in operation for a couple of years, and they would like to do a whole bunch more solar at their site, but they can't because we don't have the right market mechanism that allows them to do that cost effectively. So commercial properties, it's kind of the situation that they exist in is important to understand. I'm happy to, answer any specific, details that somebody might want to ask here or talk about in the next session. Or people are welcome to contact me, and I can give you quick answers as to what's possible at your site.
Well, I just wanted to pick up on a question that was just put out there on the Santa Barbara Unified School District deal. Does the contracted party, and I think it's NG, it is NG, right?
Yes.
Put up the initial capital.
Yes.
And should the taxpayer be thrilled that the school district's getting millions in savings, resiliency with no out-of-pocket and upfront costs?
Yeah, well, great questions. The answer, to the first part is yes. The company that's been engaged is called NG. It's a major European utility. They've been working to break into the U.S. market for the last 5 or so years. And they were the selected entity. We had, by the way, we went through an official request for proposal process, and we had 8 eligible proposals ranging from everybody from Tesla to NG and lots of parties in between. And NG was the superior proposal and got selected. In terms of should the community be thrilled? The answer is absolutely yes. Right. First of all, our public school system, which whether you send your kids public or private, you better be damn sure you got a good public school system, because the majority of people go through that, and you want to have an educated population, right? So yes, we should be thrilled that we're helping our schools. And by the way, the schools are not only looking out for their students and their staff, they're looking out for their communities as well. They strategically chose these 6 locations to make sure that they were geographically spread out so that they can serve as much of the community as they possibly can with emergency needs. So the schools are looking out for you, and you should be looking out for the schools for a variety of reasons.
Fantastic. Well, we have just a couple of minutes before I'm going to close this room and open the other, Craig, but I wanted to ask you, how can people get involved in helping us achieve this resilience, this solar-driven resilience for our region?
Yeah, well, I touched on it along the way in a couple of places, but number one, the Clean Coalition is a nonprofit organization. The Lewis family is not capable of funding this. I'm not ready to retire, despite what Stephen MacIntosh his impressions of me might be, and we need funding. we found that the Santa Barbara region, while it has a lot of foundation support for lots of great purposes, the support for energy related reasons or energy related initiatives and renewable energy and resilience, renewables driven resilience initiatives is really low. Like there's not that understanding is not out there across the philanthropic community like it is up in the San Francisco Bay Area. It's a lot easier to raise money up there. And it's hard sometimes to raise money for, projects that, are happening somewhere else. So we expected that the foundation community would be much more receptive to helping to fund these, tremendous efforts that are going on here to bring solar driven resilience to the Santa Barbara region. And if folks are able to, help us get connected with philanthropies or high net worth individuals, that family offices that have philanthropic, angle, we would love that. We don't, you won't see pitches from us for $100 here, $100 there. We're looking to get grants that are, $10,000 plus. And there's lots of foundations in the area that put out money in hundreds of thousands of dollar chunks. We just haven't had success in connecting up with those. So any help people can make in getting us connected with philanthropic support would be very, very much appreciated. And then if you have connection to properties that can be sites for solar and solar microgrids, we definitely want to talk with you about those sites. And thirdly, to the extent that folks are connected with the city leadership and Southern California Edison and have some ways of influencing there, we'd love to talk with you about that too. Because at the end of the day, Southern California Edison needs a good kick in the pants to do the things that we need them to do, and it takes kind of people with influence to help fight those battles.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Craig. We're going to have to wrap up and jump over to the other Zoom room, but I really appreciate your presentation and your answering questions. And if people have other questions, of course, they can answer them in this next Zoom room. But on behalf of the Sustainable Change Alliance, thank you so much. You're my hero. You're doing great work. And I'll see you in a minute in the next Zoom room. Thanks to everyone else for joining us too today.